Am I allowed to ask you questions right now or no? Okay. Gotcha.
How's it going, everybody? It's your boy, Skinny. I almost said what I'm not supposed to say. Never mind. Hopefully you guys are having a good one. It's good to see. I'm gonna start out this stream the same way I start out my normal stream, by saying something I'm not supposed to say in these. But hopefully you guys are having a good one. It's good to see y'all. We're gonna be doing a little bit more thesis work. This week's gonna be pretty heavy on the thesis streams, just because it's coming to the end of the semester. Just a little busy with all that stuff. So hopefully you guys are having a good one. Just kind of a normal Monday evening, not night, not more day evening. Today we got Darren with us. He's a travel extraordinaire and a fashion extraordinaire. He's a little bit out of country right now, so he can't do his video right now, but we'll still be doing the same questions, still be doing the same give and take, and I'm hoping that we can get a little bit of a different perspective on the Antarctica trip in comparison to the past two interviews. Again, I think I'm going to be having Jerry, one of the other students who was in the cohort, on this during this week, and then I'll be having Emily as well. Hopefully, at least Friday. It's a close thesis there, but I will be able to kind of talk to you guys after about the thesis experience, I guess, and be able to kind of go on from there. But again, I'll hand it over to Darren real quick to introduce himself, say hi, everything like that. And he's out of the country, so we'll be just having some audio from him, and hopefully, it all works out. I'm gonna turn it off so we can. Darren, how you doing?
I'm pretty good, man. How are you?
It's going. We're in the home stretch of this semester now. We're right at the end, so I'm a little tired and maybe worn out. Is probably not the best word, but more just kind of like ready to be done. So, and I'm so close to graduating, bro, that I'm getting that like now where I'm like, dang, dude, I can't believe I'm almost done because I'm so close. What to do, Mark? Again, also, if you guys are in chat, you guys can ask any questions. If you guys hear me, Darren, if you hear me talking to someone random, you're talking to my chat. Again, I will focus on us for the most part. But if you guys have any questions or anything like that, feel free to ask them. There's no thing that you questions or anything like that. So, but yeah, how was the trip out to where you're at now? I know you said it was a long flight, but how was it otherwise?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I was in Japan and it was like forecast to rain for like 4 days straight. So I was just like, screw this, and I left.
Get tired of it.
Just
And then
to change the weather.
Do you mind talking about why you're out of the country right now, or do you not want to talk about it?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, I'm a world traveler. Like I said, I love travel and I do a lot of different things. I have a lot of friends in different countries in different parts of the world. So it was a nice chance for me to kind of pick up where I left off. And since COVID, I haven't like been to the Asia region, Southeast Asia or Japan or anything like that. So it was nice to just reconnect with some friends in this area.
Yeah, nice. I was saying,
And then also as a fashion designer, there's lots of opportunities.
Yeah, fair.
Out here.
Definitely am interested in getting out there at some point. I feel like I need to get out there at some point. It's not on my main list of places to go. I feel like I'm pretty focused on getting to probably Africa and then some of like more Slavic areas of the world. I don't know why. It just always interested me.
I know why. I know why Africa, right?
Yeah. I mean, you know why Africa. Everybody knows why Africa. But for the most part, I think those Slavic kind of
Joe's got jungle fever.
Are interesting. So I guess kind of moving right into the thesis then, kind of just getting right into the thick of what we're working on here. I just have a couple questions that we'll kind of move through, which are the same questions I've been kind of using throughout the thesis so far. The first one is regarding the Antarctica trip. What was the experience like for you? Were you yeah, we'll just start at that. What just as that broad question. What was the experience like for you?
It was amazing. It was breathtaking. I'd say that as a person who's, traveled to every continent now. You think that maybe because you've traveled so much, you won't be blown away by anything. You feel like you may have seen everything, and Antarctica totally just destroyed that concept. I felt like I was on another planet.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an amazing experience, especially the first time like my foot touched the soil and
Yeah.
crunched through the water and the ice. It was amazing. So I think it's something that I would recommend everyone to try to do at least one time in their life.
Yeah, I would say for me especially, I've been telling people ever since I got back, whether I started a new job and everybody in my new job always kind of, or people randomly come up and kind of ask me about it. And when it gets brought up, because obviously people kind of ask like, oh, how's your semester going? Like that. And like close family and friends obviously ask me because they know I was gone for a month. They didn't see me for Christmas or New Year's. But everybody kind of asked me like, well, was it really that astonishing? And every time I'm like, yeah, bro, like I can't even put into words the legit just complete different just idea of what the world like. It was crazy to me that it was part of Earth. Like it was just insane that, especially as someone who's lived in the US my whole life and I haven't been out of the country other than to like kind of like very Americanized cities in Mexico, and then out into Canada for like 2 days before I went on a cruise. So I haven't been out of the country before, and this was the first time going to out of the country in South America, and then let alone the complete southern part of the Earth. And it really was just one of those things where everybody kind of asked like, what was it really that crazy? And every time I'm like, yeah, bro, it's the only place that I 100% believe you have to get to in some way, whatever, like work there, go on a trip. I 100% have been telling people you need to do the expedition ones because I feel like it would have been so different had we not been doing like those expeditions out and stuff like that. And I just think it's one of those things where those were so helpful I think to us as students, kind of trying to gather whatever, like we didn't really know what we were doing going out there other than like we were going there. And I feel like those expeditions kind of brought forth this idea of like what we were going to do out there. We wanted to experience the area, wanted to like be in this fully immersed study abroad. Especially with, I didn't forgot to mention it, but Darren was my, oh, did Darren drop off? Oh, Darren dropped. I'll talk for a second. But Darren was my roommate actually, and it was wild trying to kind of like have him be just this brand new person I didn't know, and it kind of brought this like really interesting aspect of it to me. Um, Really interesting aspect of the trip was just this. I mean, like random kind of. Oh, 1 second, Darren. Oh, you good there?
Yeah, I'm back. Okay. Was there a technical issue?
Yeah, it looked like you just dropped for half a second, but it's all good. You're good now.
Okay.
I can hear you and stuff
So
too. But I was just saying that it was crazy to have you like as a new roommate. Like I didn't know you. Came to one class because you were in Chicago. I forgot. I think you were in Chicago for most of the time during the class, or just again traveling. So it was one of those aspects where like new roommates, new way of living with expeditions every day. And would you kind of mind? I don't know, kind of building on that. Like, did you feel similar in that like new roommate aspect? Was that something that traveling you had kind of encountered before? Was kind of living with people and like this very close quarters, or was this a pretty new experience for you, even though you are well traveled?
right, I would say that it was a old experience and a new experience because as you know, I'm in my 30s, so I'm a little bit older. I'm a more mature student in terms of I've done undergrad and things like that,
Mm,
and this is kind of me just kind of starting over in some more things that I'm interested in and building on skills that I already acquired in previous degrees and things like that, and all building towards the future of what I want to do. So I've had roommates and things, but it's been years since. So it was
mm,
kind of a new thing for me in that sense. And like you were saying, I kind of didn't know what to expect because we do have that age gap. So I'm like, oh, are these guys going to be cool? Like, am I going to be too much for them? Am I going to be like, are they going to be too crazy? So you never knew what to expect, but I'm pretty flexible. And like you said, I've traveled, I've done a lot. So I feel like I'm adaptable to every situation. So it's more like, I hope these guys can adapt to me. And it obviously turned out to be like an awesome trio.
yeah.
So
Our
thanks
trio was
for
fantastic,
being
bro.
my roommate.
It was
Yeah.
astonishing to me how good of a trio we were. Kind of going on from that kind of past point I made, looking at the expeditions and how the expeditions felt. Did the expeditions, you think, kind of add, I don't know, a layer of this that you didn't expect? Because for me, I didn't realize that was what we were going to be doing. And it just blew my mind. Like I just was like, oh, this is every day we're doing something, that we're at an island or we're at something. So did those expeditions, or even just any of the expedition leaders or anything like that, kind of, I don't know, make the experience more than you had expected?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was mind blowing in the sense that I didn't really know what to expect. In fact, I expected like some weird things. Like I thought we were going to be going down on like some old like Russian vessel and we'd be eating like out of canned goods and things like that. And I thought we would be doing like weird science for some reason. And then when we get there, we're like doing really cool stuff, but we're also being explorers. So like jumping out on the Zodiacs every day was crazy. Like the amount of different things to do was
Mm-hmm.
crazy. And that's one of the questions that everyone always asks is like, what will you guys, what did you do there? And it's hard to explain because it's like there are no cities or clubs or anything like
Yeah,
that. But it makes you realize there's a lot to do without civilization or without
yeah,
structures and buildings and things like that.
yeah. That's a
So
great.
for me, I've always been pretty in tune with nature,
Mhm.
but nothing like this. Like, I mean, when we first arrived to one of the places in South Georgia, there was so much wildlife that we couldn't even land. Like that's absurd to me. So
Yeah,
so just being like that close to animals and seeing all these animals like coexist next to each other is just weird. Like, and they're just all packed, sharing the same space. So I thought that was really awesome. And then just Antarctica alone, how many different like environments we saw. Like we
mm,
got to Brown Bluff and you would think like we were on like Mars or something.
yeah,
And then like we'd go a little bit down the harbor to like Orne Harbor and it's like just a snow covered mountain and it's just like what the heck?
yeah, yeah.
It was awesome. It felt like the movie Interstellar, like we
Yeah.
were searching for a new planet to destroy.
See, it really felt like it was bringing up that kind of idea of Brown Bluff and Orne Harbor. It's weird to think that like when you probably in Chicago have had a similar or like similar experience. Like just from me from in Arizona, like I go from Phoenix to Flagstaff, and it's like, oh, it's warm and it's cold. Like in the winter, you're like, oh, you go to snow or you come down, there's no snow. Like that's kind of the most change I really had when I was in Alaska 2 years ago with my girlfriend. It was kind of one of those things too, where I was like, oh yeah, this is wild. Like this is a lot of snow. Like it's just kind of this is a lot of snow. It's kind of what I expected when I was out there for the winter. And going from from Orne Harbor or from Brown Bluff to Orne Harbor, it really was just one of those like it was crazy that within 3 hours of going from one place to another, you were just experiencing like your eyes were just seeing something that your brain, like at least for me, could not comprehend. Like it was just astonishing to me to see these like vastly different places at, in hours apart. And one of the things that I think you touched on that is interesting is this kind of idea of people asking what we did out there, because I've run into that same question too. Like people are like, "Oh, so like what were you guys doing like every day though? Like you were gone for a month. Like you weren't home. What were you doing every day?" And it's funny because like I then my mind immediately goes into I want to explain every single day where we were at, what we saw, what days, what we saw on certain days and stuff like that, because it's so difficult, like you said, to explain like the complexity of what we were doing, because it's so weird just how different each day and each experience was, and even how different like from midnight to noon was compared to noon to midnight. Like every day, if you split it in half, you'd be like, yeah, the beginning of our morning was at Gritviken, and then the next part of our day might have been travel or whatever it was. But I think that same day we were just watching humpback whales breach for 5 hours, like just trying to watch humpback whales breach for an extended period of time. And both of those things people would put on like a trip would just be like, yeah, that's enough for me. I don't even need anything else. And that was like the third, fourth day on the boat. Like it was no time into the trip at all that we were really doing like these crazy things. Even the first day when we were the first time we got off the boat and we were seeing penguins for the first time, I was like, yeah, I'm good. I saw penguins. Like I saw a lot of penguins. I think I don't even need to see penguins anymore. Like that was a lot of penguins. I didn't expect that. And then we 3 days later get to the second largest king penguin colony, and I was like, oh my god, this is what a lot of penguins looks like. So I think it is interesting, that idea of
Right.
like these expeditions adding just a layer of the trip that I had just like had fully blown over my head when we had signed up for it. And I'm happy it did, because it made every experience every day that much more
Right.
entertaining.
I mean, just think about disembarking the boat when we get on the Zodiac and we go out, and the weather conditions are one thing, and then getting back, it's like what? Like we can't even get back into the boat because
Yeah.
it's like just crazy rainstorm, or it's like just turbulent water, and like you're shaking, the boat's shaking. It was just crazy. Just getting on and off the ship was awesome and epic every time.
Every time it was crazy, bro. And yeah, you're right. Like, even just that simple fact of like what had become kind of monotonous for us, like this idea of like getting on and off a Zodiac, which again is pretty wild when you put it in perspective of like trips. Like, there's not a lot of trips where you're like getting off a cruise ship onto a different boat to then go to like wildlife. That there's not a lot of cruises that allow you to do that. A lot of them are sightseeing from the cruise ship, whatever it is. But every time when the weather would pick up and they'd be like, yeah, you know, this is a little dangerous out here, and we'd be like, yeah, it seems like it. Like, this doesn't seem like it's safe at all. And be like, well, we got to get on the cruise ship somehow. And you're just sitting there like waiting to like, it was just crazy every time, waiting to get off the Zodiac onto the cruise ship again. And you're like bouncing up and down. They're like, no, you got to wait. All right, go. All right, wait, go. Like, just those simple interactions with the crew members were always so entertaining. And again, I want to real quick, just because I don't know if I have the whole trip or the whole thesis, but I really want to shout out everybody who was involved on the boat, on Ocean Victory, and all of the people behind the scenes. I gave a toast on New Year's Eve, and I kind of want to reiterate what I kind of said that night. But all of the people behind the scenes that we didn't really interact with as often as the expedition leaders, and all the crew members who were helping make sure the boat was running, helping us get in and out of the boat. Real shout out to them, because I mean, I know for Darren, bro, Darren was, there were a few times Darren was struggling, bro. This man would have 4 cameras set up, plastic bags on each camera, and they'd be like, all right, you got to put those away. And then Darren would be too tired. He'd just be like, I can't put them away. And then we get back to the boat, and Darren would just be sitting there waiting for someone to grab his hand, holding all 4 cameras, getting out of the boat. And I feel like those people even just added another layer of it, where it was just like, yeah, this is just fantastic. Do you have anything else to kind of add to that? I don't know, that
Yeah,
kind of
I
ending
agree
of that
with that.
closing.
I agree with that. Everyone was so accommodating and really making sure that we got the experience that we wanted. One of the things that I'd love to say that is like when you start reading more about Antarctica, like closer to the trip, there's a great possibility that nothing will happen. You won't
Yeah.
get anything. Like the weather will be too extreme, or just things will happen. So I felt like the fact that we only had one excursion canceled, and it was canceled because there was just too much wildlife, is insane. I don't think that there could have been a more perfect trip in terms of awesome weather. And even when the weather was quote unquote bad, it was like part of what we needed for that Antarctic experience. We
Mm-hmm.
needed like a snowy, bitter cold hiking up a mountain day. We needed all that, but we really had great weather, and we were really, really fortunate. I don't think that it gets much better than what we had.
Yeah. That is a
Like we went what, like 22 of 23 excursions. That's
yeah, it
crazy.
is, and when they, which again, like, in back on Darren's point, there were trips they would tell us where it would be that same trip. It'd be 23 or a 26 day trip, and you'd be 27-day trip, whatever the cruise was, and you'd be getting off the boat maybe 10 of the days, 10 of the 23 days. You might get 10 times off the boat, and a lot of those 10 times would be involving places that like weren't as crazy as we saw. Like, a lot of the times those excursions, when they go on those kind of, when those trips have bad weather and stuff, like, you're going to the kind of more sheltered areas, which aren't areas that are as plump with wildlife and stuff like that, or plump with glaciers and stuff like that, because it gets, or with icebergs, because it gets kind of nerve-wracking for people driving boats when you got large swells and massive glaciers that have the chance of tipping and breaking and doing so many different things. So I think, to second Darren's point, like, as someone who had been trying to go on this trip for so long, I could not have asked for a better trip, and I am just eternally grateful for the work that Nicole and Andrew did, the work that even all of us as a cohort did to accommodate each other and like understand each other's kind of struggles throughout the trip. And everybody on the boat, again, just like the ability for everybody to like work that well together was quite crazy, and it all just helped with making the trip so astonishing. It would have been weird if the group didn't mesh well. It would have been weird if the crew members didn't mesh well with us, especially because we were so much younger. Even Darren saying like, oh, he's a little older. Darren was still way below the average age of what the boat was. Like, we were definitely nervous going into it about like the age of our group and stuff like that. And it really was just a crazy trip and a crazy accommodating service staff that was just so fun, and us making friends with our staff on our level and stuff like that. Like, it was just those simple things that made the trip exceedingly more fun. Just fun, I think, is the best word. Moving forward, because we're a little bit behind into the next question. Again, as someone who's kind of like well traveled and has been around a lot of different cultures.
Oh, your audio went out. Yeah, this is cool. Can you repeat the entire question? As great as technology is, when it fails, it's like, damn, excuse my language. Yeah, for me, it really reinforced this notion that anything that I put my mind to, I can do it, especially if I care about it enough. But also, like I used to joke around and say that I was going to see the entire world, and then after I saw the entire world, I was going to like go to space. And now I actually don't think that that's a far-fetched idea. I feel like all I have to do is one, get rich enough, and two, live long enough. So I fully feel like I will be able to go to space in my lifetime if I, like I said, if I live long enough and make enough money. So Antarctica really kind of put that in perspective that you can do these things if you have the resources and the desire to do it. I mean, Antarctica for me was like my final frontier because I had like made a point to see the entire world, and that was kind of a childhood dream for me. So even though this is like travel related, it really speaks to who I am as a person in terms of like setting goals and then accomplishing them. So just like a quick side note on my personal philosophy, I always said to myself as an adult, if you could give yourself half the things you said you wanted as a child, you'd live a really, really fulfilled life just from half of the things you said you would do as a kid. I mean, think about it. As kids, we are so like uh interested in all these really cool things. And as we get older, we get like a little bit more jaded, but we also get like quote unquote realistic. And that kind of kills us as human beings. So I think that for me, making it a point to go back and like do half of the things I said I would do as a kid, as an adult, it really like keeping my word to myself really changes my perspective on what is and what isn't possible. Because we every kid thinks that they could be an astronaut or president, but then when you get like close to graduation, you're like, yeah, I probably can't be president, or I probably can't do this. And it's like, why? Like, why don't you have that same wonder as a child? So when I was in Antarctica and my feet were on the ground, like I just had this tingling sensation about like a world of possibilities. Like I'm actually here. This is one of those random far-fetched things that I said I would do as a kid. And Joe, you know I did around the world in 80 days. So I actually did all seven continents
Yeah.
in 80 days. And it was all because of a book I read as a kid. So doing these things like was really important. So for me, Antarctica is like an epitome of what you can do if you set your mind to it. So I really love the experience for that because it serves as like this grand metaphor in my life.
Yeah, so I'm gonna clap it up for you. I love that, bro. I say, and it's one of those things where, as someone who has always been kind of like school bound or sport bound, like through high school, through and like again with like my background of like cancer and stuff like that. For me, a lot of like childhood stuff wasn't necessarily like taken away, but like I really just didn't get to have that kind of aspect of childhood when growing up. Like I was diagnosed with cancer at 5, and finish up at 8. Like I had missed kindergarten through 3rd grade, basically, of being able to kind of do what I wanted, and kind of building up these like ideas of like adventure and stuff like that, just because it wasn't feasible at the time for me. And I think as I've gotten older, I got super bound on uh like working really hard and not allowing myself to kind of have these like experiences of like, not like necessarily like not allowing myself to have experiences of happiness, but not allowing myself to kind of like enjoy things because I'm like, no, I have to get this done. I have to work. I have to do X, Y, and Z. I have to get these certain things done. And I think the trip allowed me to completely distance myself from everything, whether it was streaming, whether it was schoolwork, whether it was just regular work. And Dartsco really was kind of this idea of like 3 years ago, I said I was going to go on this trip. And like you said, keeping the word to yourself is one of those things where it's very easy in thought, and then when it gets down into the nitty gritty, and you're like, man, I could do these other things that might profit more, make me more money, but like that doesn't really keep me to what I'm kind of like talking about and stuff. So it's one of those things where it's interesting for me to kind of hear your aspect of doing half the things, which we've talked about this on the trip and even at dinner when we had dinner a little while ago, of doing, yeah, again, half the things that you promised yourself as a kid. Me doing even a fifth of the things I've promised myself as a above 18 year old, like as a college student, has improved a lot of my kind of, I don't know, I think mental process throughout this kind of that short span of 4 or 5 years. And it's just one of those things where you kind of, again, like you said, you kind of lose that, I don't, that, yeah, that like creative or like astonishing idea kind of aspect of humans. As you said, like kids, as we're growing up, all you think about is like, I can do this, I can do that, I can do this, I can do that. And then like you said, you get into college, you get into working, you get a family, whatever it is, and you're like, yeah, I can't really do that anymore. I got other stuff taking my time. And even if you just somewhat took half the things like you said and just stuck to it, whether that's in a large time commitment or even a short time commitment, it really can just amplify a lot of those things that you just didn't really understand were a big part of your personality growing up. You find that kind of child in you, in the little pieces of your life you take from here and there, and you kind of experience just life in a different way. And I think you've done a great job of kind of imprinting that idea on us in the cohort too, especially with having done the 7 continents and stuff like that. I know there are plenty of people now in our cohort who are like, I can do the 7 continents now. So it's cool to also see kind of you leaving that imprint just by being you, just by going on these trips, by doing something you wanted to do, being able to imprint yourself on other people and their goals just by being yourself is really empowering, and it is inspiring to see that that's even possible, because it's kind of easy to get lost in this kind of world right now. So seeing those like kind of little bright spots like that is very entertaining and very helpful, I think, for a lot of people. Moving on real quick again to the next question. Was there someone specifically on the trip you believe enhanced the experience of the trip? It's kind of back on the question I asked earlier, but whether that's a crew member, an individual on a trip, professors, even like if there was someone in your family you were talking to while you were away. And we'll keep it positive, because there were some people on the boat who I think we all collectively kind of not ganged up on, but all collectively disliked, and it kind of made the trip funny too. But staying more on the positive side of someone who you think positively impacted you on the trip.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to answer because, like I said, the camaraderie that you and Jerry and I built together was special. Like the professors being like flexible enough to understand that the situation we were in would change, like the needs of the academic aspect of the program would need to change a little bit, and it became more experience based than like trying to learn. It was more like take it in, experience it. So I got to give the professors a lot of credit for that, being adaptive and really allowing us to enhance our situation and our experience through experience, and not necessarily like reading journals of
Yeah.
science and things. Once we were there, we just got to experience it, and they were very flexible in that regard. But I think that the expedition leader, Jamie, was super important because like I didn't know what to expect. I really came in as a blank slate. And the fact that he filled in so many gaps for us, and then he was like, and all the staff really would if you had a particular interest, you could go and talk to, Gabby if you wanted to know about, glaciers, and you could talk to Maria about whales or whatever. So everyone contributed and everyone was available for you if you wanted to. But Jamie, as the expedition leader, like I think that was a great thing, because sometimes too he would like ask us as a group if we could handle things like the Grit Vic and hike. Like, you guys, I'm gonna let you know this isn't gonna be easy, but if you do it, you might really love it. But I'm gonna give everyone the option to do that. And I was like, but then I'm like, you know what? I'm never gonna be here again. And even if I am, like we said earlier, there's no chance, there's no guarantee that we'll land, which is awesome because actually they did close that
Yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah,
So
that
you
hike was
can't hike
crazy.
Grit
Can't
Vics
hike it
anymore.
anymore.
Yeah, so I'm glad I did it, but having someone very experienced be able to guide me and lead me through the process was probably the most impactful thing.
Yeah, and I feel like Jamie did a very good job of kind of, again, like with my stint with hypothermia and stuff like that. It was interesting because he came to me after and was like, "So I experienced the same thing. What was it like for you?" And I feel like you said, like a lot of the staff was like that, where you would run into something, whether it was Ob and you were like, "Yo, the bird did this. What does this mean?" Which granted, a lot of people on the boat were bird people. Ob was just like probably one we were closer with when it came to asking questions about
Right.
birds. But like Ob just knew everything about birds, bro. Like, you walk up and ask Ob anything about any bird in the southern hemisphere or in the southern ocean, and you'd be like, "Oh yeah, this is probably why I did this is what happens." And it was interesting because then Jamie would do kind of the with his role of kind of being this like overseer and setting up everything, and allowing, like, I think he did a good job of allowing his staff to like work to their strengths, which I feel like is something that companies kind of struggle with sometimes. Is like having someone who's not the high up, who's the go between your boss and your employees. And it felt like Jamie was like the perfect fit for the trip because he had a good relationship with everyone. He was able to talk to everybody on the boat, whether that was crew members or I can't think of the word for like people like us, like people who were on the trip and stuff like that. So it was one of those things where I felt like it was just he did a great job of being that go between of, yeah, being a really knowledgeable person about like a large amount of things. But when he didn't know something, he would just be like, yeah, go to this person. And he knew immediately who it was and knew immediately that that person would be able to give you great information about whatever it was. And I would say that Jamie also added just an insane amount of information to the trip due to just his wide knowledge and his knowledge of just his crew, which was really powerful and really helpful when it comes to, like you said, like blank slates. Like we had no idea, bro. We had zero idea what we were doing. Like we were going on a trip with ASU. Thank you, ASU, for the opportunity, of course. Going on a trip that we had really no idea what the daily in between was. And for me, I especially believed that it was going to be this kind of more uh like study, or not even study, just like more like work, written work kind of aspect of a study abroad, which was kind of daunting. But I was like, hey, we're going to Antarctica. It is what it is. And again, like you said, like thankful to our professors, Nicole and Andrew, for being flexible and really making the trip so good because of that flexibility. So I think you touched on just two great points of like multiple individuals, but Jamie especially being able to kind of be that go between for everybody and having all that knowledge was, it was just powerful and stuff like that. So kind of going back on this mental aspect of the trip, is there something that like a moment for you that you felt was awing, other than touching down? Because I know you're going to say touching down on
I'm definitely
Antarctica.
gonna say touching down.
Was there anything else that you, whether it was like an interaction with animals or something that kind of like opened your eyes to that idea of like still being able to have new experiences, still being able to do these different things, like you said with space and being able to get to space, like being not less, like it seems more feasible now, especially with the way everything's
Right.
going. Was there a moment that kind of did that for you or made it seem like that, or was it just the whole trip in general?
Um. So I mean, there were so many moments. Like, it was great. One, like I said before, it was great that we had that camaraderie, but we could also go out in the middle of the night and just sit next to the ocean with no one around us and stare at the stars and like really get in touch with nature. Like, I always thought that I was a pretty big fan of nature, even though I love traveling and traveling to cities. But from a nature standpoint, this really hit different, to bring up one of our phrases. Um, it, it hit different, and it was like nice to just the sky, seeing the sky every night, and just being able to sit under the stars, or being on a quiet place on the continent, and then being on another place on the continent where the penguins just won't shut up.
Hmm.
But you don't have that human element. So you were out of your element almost, because everywhere we went, there was like the only technology was like the little red poles that they stood up
Yeah.
to like mark, like, don't go past this point to mess with the wildlife. There were like, even our zodiacs, they were like landing and like anchored, like still in the water. So you
Hmm.
had to not only like get off, you had to like hike up the shore, you know. So
Past
when we were
past all the
on
wildlife and stuff too. Like,
right. So when we were there, we were there. Like, and there was only like maybe two or three places that we went on Antarctica and South Georgia that had like actual remnants of like human structures.
mm,
Like, in like two of those places were like just like there were no
old
people
shacks
there,
or whatever it was.
like a
Yeah.
shed.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right. So being there and just being like, okay, the only thing that's standing between me and my existence is nature.
Mm,
Like, I'm not
yeah.
near the zodiac. I'm not like, I don't have a radio or a phone or anything like that. I just have this like group of other people around me. Was kind of like fascinating, and like mentally, like you said, you were able to actually like disconnect and be present in a sense. Like, I don't have my phone. I do have my cameras and stuff, but
Still
I don't
though.
have my phone, and I don't have any technology, like, and I'm here, and I can just listen and smell, even though the smells weren't always great. I can like just use my I feel like when I was in Antarctica, like the mentally, it was like the first time I could truly use all my five senses
mm.
without any interference of like technology.
Yeah. I feel
So like,
like.
I didn't smell pollution, I smelled animals. I didn't
Yeah.
see buildings, I saw trees and bluffs and water and calving. I mean, calving is crazy. It
Yeah.
makes you
Touch on that
feel
real
like
quick. Talk about Calvin real quick.
you feel like so happy to be a part of the world, but you also feel like so insignificant, like a speck. Like, calving is like this gigantic like collapse of glaciers, where you hear like this thunderous boom, and then you see the waves just like pick up, because like thousands of tons of ice just went into the water and like disrupted the balance of like the waves and things like that. And it's just like the thunderous crackling boom of a calving is just like, what? Like, it's hard to like process, and that's all you see. You're not distracted by like planes flying overhead, and like you have no choice but to like be in that moment and experience that and witness that. And I thought that was like super special mentally,
Yeah, and I think.
like, as far as just being connected to being present.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting your kind of aspect of like being this very well traveled person. But when you think of being well traveled, like to me, at least again, I don't know everywhere you've been. I don't know all the nature stuff you've done, but like Antarctica and even South Georgia and Falkland, obviously, really are this like it's a dose of nature that is just it's inconceivable. Like it's difficult to comprehend the level of nature you're going to interact with because like I go on a hike and I'm like, oh yeah, I was out in nature. It was just like it was trees and it was like sunny and like I enjoyed it because I got out for once. But like this trip was the epitome of a nature one, other than like maybe like going to like the Amazon or going like into to the like the deserts in Africa, whether like anything like that, I think is maybe similar, but even those are is somewhat some not tainted, but somewhat touched by human nature. There are a lot of safari trips you can go on. There's a lot of different things you can
Right, and
go.
we're familiar with it too.
Yeah,
We're
exactly,
familiar with the
exactly.
landscapes. Like, oh, that's a savanna. We know what a savanna is.
Yeah,
We know
exactly.
what desert is and rainforest. But like, Antarctica is like, what is this? This
Yeah,
vast,
yeah.
crazy place. Like, the fact that, like I said, Antarctica, we think like it would just be all snow covered, but there are parts where it was like brown
Yeah, there's
or
no snow. Where
green
there's no
or
snow.
like just crazy.
Yeah, and it was this idea I think for you, which is again an interesting aspect to add to this thesis, is this idea of someone who is well traveled, really like getting the complete opposite of what like being well traveled is. Like for a lot of people, well traveled is, yeah, I've been to Japan, I've been to South America, I've been to these like places just rich with culture, just and just like so much culture that you have not experienced before. And we went to quite literally the complete absence of culture, to the complete absence
Right.
of anything. There was no culture. There is no, depending on what you count as culture, but when it comes to human culture, there is literally none of it. There are remnants of human history, and that is about it. We don't know what those people were really like. We don't know those people personally or anything like that. We don't know kind of like the aspect of their lives. So you really are just traveling to these places that are only nature and have always been only nature for the entirety of basically the time Antarctica's been around, which is an interesting idea of the complete dichotomy of all of this thing being well traveled and being in all these different cultures, and then finally going to the place where there is none and being just as enraptured by the non-culture and the just the vast amount of culture you've probably experienced, which is I think a cool aspect of it.
Right.
Being able to disconnect entirely is not something you're probably really able to do when you're going on these trips to other places and stuff like that. Whereas in Antarctica, you're kind of forced to. You can't really do anything else other than be completely disconnected due to the weirdness of the area and the lack of human down there. So I think that's a very interesting point and something that I like definitely will take further on in this thesis of just like, yeah, being able to be part of something that has no culture is just as shocking. Like it's culture shock without the culture. It's just shock basically, which is
Right.
is crazy to me.
I think that it kind of shows us too how like vocabulary can like change over time. But then when you go to a place like Antarctica, you see where the original definition came from. So like you can be in Arizona or somewhere in America and say that you've been in the wilderness, but that's not actually the true definition of wilderness.
Yeah.
Antarctica is there's still places that no human has actually trekked
Hmm.
or walked or mapped. Like they've been there, but there are still like undiscovered places, and that's like the true definition of wilderness. And you understand that when you get to Antarctica, like, yeah, we were here on the Arctic Peninsula, but if we even trekked like 50 kilometers or 60 miles in this direction, perhaps no human actually ever set foot in a spot on this continent.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's like crazy. And that's like the true definition of wilderness. For us, we would say that wilderness is anything that's just kind of like not inhabited by humans.
Yeah.
Like that's how we would generally use that term. But like wilderness is actually like no one has actually come to this spot or seen this spot or knows anything about the spot. This is a brand new thing for them. And like Antarctica kind of lets you reposition those definitions and that vocabulary. Like you were saying, like you were like awestruck, and that's like the true meaning of like awesome. It's not like, oh, this is rad. It's like this is like wow.
Yeah. I say, and I think
And Antarctica brings those original definitions back into the fold, I
hmm
feel.
yeah, for sure. So, and I think one of the interesting things, kind of more or less, just like a funny interaction with us or a cool interaction. One of the main interactions between you and me that I thought was like, all right, I think we're more homies now. Is when we were sitting there, like kind of you brought up. This is kind of on the point, but not on the point. I just wanted to bring it up because you're here. But us sitting in that hot tub, and after hours of not having seen humpback whales, bro, and just sitting in the hot tub. I don't think we had drinks or anything. I think we were just sitting in the hot tub waiting for dinner. We had been told like, oh yeah, there's all these whales jumping, and we were like kind of last to the area to look at whales, so it was kind of difficult for us to kind of see stuff. We weren't really getting photos and stuff like that. And then me and Darren just sat down and we're in the hot tub on the boat, and I mean I don't know how close that was. I don't remember how far it was, but that it seemed close, bro. And we just
It
saw
was super close.
4 or 5 humpback whales, like a mom and her pups, it looked like, all just breaching. And it was crazy because we were the only people. Like, there was no one else out there with us. There was no one in the other hot tub, no one on the back of the boat. And me and Darren were just sitting there like you said, kind of that idea of awe, awesome, and like the actual idea of what awe is. It was literally that moment where I was like, yeah, dude, this is crazy. Like, this is insane to be in this moment with a guy I met a week and a half ago, maybe. And it just was crazy. And it's one of those things, again, where I think this idea of, like you said, understanding where where words come from is kind of like muddled and watered down throughout school because it, like, at the end of the day, people don't really care about like where they come from. You just care about how you're using them now a lot of the time. but being able to like actually experience the like newfound the being able to experience that finding of that word and like uh, understanding what that word really means to yourself is a crazy perspective on a multitude of levels. Like it changes your brain chemistry, bro. You just cannot comprehend certain things. And I just remember seeing you so happy, bro, and it was just like, dude, this is nuts. This is actually crazy. And then you know what we did, Darren? We went and had dinner with 14 other people we had known for a week and a half, and had a conversation after about the day, and then in 12 hours we were in a completely different spot experiencing a completely different environment. And that aspect of the trip I think is very cool for you to bring up and kind of I think reimagine in a way,
Right.
because it wasn't something I had thought about too much.
And the thing I love too is if you travel to Antarctica 1,000 times, you're never going to get the exact
Oh,
same
absolutely
experience.
not. Oh, absolutely not. It's insane.
But another thing that was really amazing is like the I don't even know how to say it, like the just stark contrast between the technological advancement of the ship we were on and then nature. So we're on like this most sophisticated device that humans could create in the middle of nowhere. Like the fact that we were on a hot tub on that ship
Yeah,
with the
facts. Yeah.
stabilizers that we had. Like people, I know some people that we flew back on the plane from, and they had been on another cruise, and a woman had broke her arm because she got thrown in the shower during the Drake Passage.
Good
But for us,
lord.
with our ship and the stabilizers, it's kind of like, what? Like you got thrown?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was a luxury. That was a luxury that we had being on that ship. And the fact, like I said, that we were like posted up in a hot tub, but our background looked like outer space
Oh yeah, bro.
was insane.
That's a
And our
sick. That
background,
is a sick statement, by the way. That is nuts. Sitting in a hot tub with our background
all
like
of our backgrounds were
space.
stupid.
Yeah, our backgrounds were dumb, bro. Every photo you took on your cameras was. I literally go through our photo album as a group and I'm like, dang, these are crazy, bro. This photo's crazy. 50th time seeing the photo, yeah, this photo's crazy, bro. Like every single time. So moving on, kind of closing out here. We're getting kind of towards the end. We got kind of like two more, maybe like one and a half, because we've kind of answered it again. We've kind of already answered this question. If you could do the trip again, who else would you want to bring on the trip with you? Just one other person, or someone who went on it that you're like, oh, I want to bring them back. Who's someone that you think, either personal life, who is alive, obviously, and that would you want to bring on the trip if you did it again?
I would say family members if I could. Uh, I don't have any children, but if I had children, I would want to bring them, even though this wasn't really a trip for kids, but maybe if I had like an adult son or something, just to
Mm.
change someone's perspective and give someone that experience that I have. That like Antarctica, I feel like it's hard to live vicariously through someone else. You have to do it yourself. So like I would love to like bring like my mom or dad, but they're older. So it
Mm.
would have been like very difficult for them just getting on and off the zodiacs and things like that. But it would be a nice thing to like just let anybody that you truly care about experience, including a significant other. I mean, I can't imagine if like you were with a girlfriend on this trip.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
that would be
dude.
crazy too. So yeah, I mean, anybody that I care about, I feel like I could have taken on this
Mm.
trip and really had a great experience. Like I took my sister to Egypt last year, and it was her first time out of the country, and that was like a mind blowing experience for me as a sibling, being able to share that with her. And I can't imagine if like I even took my sister to Antarctica. It would be crazy.
Oh yeah, that's
So
like me with my little brother. I've been saying on, because I ask that question every interview, and for me it's my little brother, because I know my little brother. Like when I was going on the trip, my brother was like, "Dang, Joe, you're living my dream," and I was like, "Dang, I might need to get Jay to Antarctica at some point, then, bro, because this is nuts. If that's what, like, I need to get him there, because it is one of those things. Like even this aspect of like, even if the trip isn't as good as ours was, bro, us viewing stuff from the ship would still be crazy. Like it was crazy because we got to get off the boat so much. If you had told me like, oh yeah, we'll get off the boat 5 days, but you're still gonna go past a lot of these areas, I'd be like, yeah, okay, I'm down. That sounds sick still. I'm still totally in for that. I do think Ocean Victory, like you said, with how advanced it was, is kind of like I think I need to go on that boat again, because it did make it seem like other boats were terrible. Like not terrible, because that sounds bad. I don't want to give them like a bad name, but Ocean Victory was so advanced that it seemed like it would be difficult to do that trip in any other boat, like whatsoever. So I do think for me again, it is still my brother. And I just think, yeah, I kind of same. I've never really traveled with just a family member. Like I've traveled with all of my family. I've never traveled with just like one of my family. Or I traveled with my older brother a little bit for sports to like different states for sporting events and stuff like that. But other than that, like nothing really like large. I was gonna say grand scheme. Nothing grand scheme very big. Like a trip to Antarctica, like even like a trip to Egypt, because that sounds sick. But anything like that, I think would be very entertaining. I always think my brother would be sick to bring, and of course, like you said, like a girlfriend, a wife, whatever it is, would be. I couldn't imagine that trip with someone close like that. And I think it's interesting to think of this trip, doing this trip again, but without the school side, like without the. It's interesting because I feel like we, as a cohort, because of school, like we're brought together throughout the trip because of those little meetings, and we would all make plans like after those little meetings. And I think it's interesting to think of like if I were to do this trip again, but I only did it with one person, how would this trip be different? Like would I go to bed at earlier times? Would I be more tired? Would I be trying to sleep in? What would I be doing? Would I be less pressed to go on to certain excursions, which I don't think I would. But I think it's interesting to think of this like I know my little brother would be like, Joe, we're waking up at 4 a.m. We're the first people every single time our caller gets called. And then at night, we're going to bed at 9 o'clock so we can get up. And he wouldn't care about like the more, I guess, like party aspect of the boat, or like the more social aspect is probably a better way of putting it, of the boat. Whereas I know my girlfriend probably be doing the same thing where she's saying like we need to go to bed early so we can wake up for everything. But she'd be interested kind of in that social aspect of the trip and being interested in that social kind of realm of the boat, because it's so odd the way that the boat dynamic kind of works when you're on a boat for 27 days. Like you actually build like pretty good friendships with a lot of those people. And you like look forward to having dinner with them or having a drink with them after the day's wrapped up or anything like that. So I think I always finding it as an interesting question, because it really does, like a new person introduces a new dynamic, especially when it's only one person versus the 16 of us. Do you have anything else kind of to add to that point, or what you think would happen if you were to bring certain people?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Every person would change the experience, and it would be a good experience either
Mm-hmm.
way, but it'd just be different.
Yeah, it definitely would be
Yeah.
crazy just to bring different people. I think it finds it so interesting. So closing out here, kind of again a broad question as we're closing in on. We might have hit an hour, closing in on an hour. It's fine if we go over too. If you need to dip out too, just let me know. But the last question is just, what is your next big goal moving forward? Whether that's related to like mental stuff, or obviously with like your business side of it, whatever it is. But what's your kind of next big goal? Obviously, one of your big goals was the 7 continents, hitting all 7 continents. So what is kind of the next thing that you're looking towards? What is something that you're trying to work towards, I guess?
Yeah, my big goal is to really get my brand off the ground. It's
Mm.
there's a lot of fashion involved, but there's also like a travel aspect to it. So my brand is more like a lifestyle brand, but it also has product. So I want to get my website off the ground and just really get my digital platform together. That's my big goal. My brand is Fabric Da Vinci. I'm trying to create a platform that's like Vogue meets National Geographic. So it's like a different way of learning. So you learn through fashion, fine arts, and entertainment, but it's still like world class journalism in a sense. So that's what I
Okay.
want to do. I want to build that platform out and have it online, and all these travel experiences actually be collected and presented for other people to digest.
I like it, baby. I like it, baby. So then, kind of wrapping up here again, like you said, his name is Darren. I won't say your last name because I don't know if you want me to say your last name. But he's starting up his clothing, kind of a lifestyle, like he said, company, which is why he's actually out of country. So if you guys want, Darren, do you want me to sauce your at?
Yeah, you can.
So I
It's not
believe.
ready yet, but it will be within a few months.
Well, what about your Insta? What if I just shouted out your Insta?
Yeah, you could shout out
So
my
his
Insta.
Insta, I believe, it's just I am Fabric Da Vinci, correct?
Yep.
So it's just I am Fabric Da Vinci, IAMFABRIC, and then like Leonardo da Vinci, DAVINCI. I am Fabric Da Vinci. Hopefully he'll be getting it up soon. Obviously he's working towards it. Obviously we're all supporting him. I'll let you guys know throughout the streams and everything moving forward when it's up. You know, Darren said he was gonna make me a little custom Milkman one, so we'll see if it comes to fruition. Obviously, but I'm looking forward to you coming back to being back in the States, being able to maybe share a little cigar, little rum and coke or something. But I appreciate you stopping by, man. Again, if you guys want to follow him, he's just I am Fabric Da Vinci. Hopefully you guys have a good one. I'll wrap up right here real quick, Darren. If you want to just mute for half a second, I'll kind of wrap up all this stuff and then I'll talk to you just a second. But yeah, hopefully you guys have a good one. Again, we'll be back this coming week. Hopefully maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, or Wednesday, Thursday. I'll have to figure it out. But hopefully coming up towards the end of this week, we'll be wrapping up all these interviews and stuff like that. It's been kind of weird with my funding and getting stuff, and they wanted me to use the stuff that I got funded for. So thank you to ASU for this new desk, obviously. Thank you to ASU for the pop filter. Thank you to ASU for the soundproofing stuff. They all funded all that stuff, so I appreciate you guys everything, obviously, and helping me get through school and helping me get a degree, and helping me obviously work on this thesis, which has been very entertaining so far, and I'm excited to defend it on Friday. I think it'll be a very entertaining and fun defense. So again, coming out this week, hopefully we'll be interviewing 2 more individuals from the cohort, Jerry and Emily. If that doesn't come to fruition, I'll have to figure out some other stuff, but that'll be kind of the roadmap for the week. They'll probably be around like an hour again, like I said before. And again, if you guys have any questions you guys want me to ask, if you guys have any questions that you guys think should have been worked on a little bit more, let me know, and I will try to incorporate them into the next stream. Hopefully you guys have a good one. Spread the love, spread the joy, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.